Oh, yeah. Thank you, Creative Mornings, for having me here. I'm Jammy, and I will actually, well, urban strategist is apparently something seems everyone understand what it is, but not so clear what it is, because it's kind of a role I created because I'm somewhere in between. The same as how Chinese people create our like English names, actually. Like this? Yeah. So nomad, I think it's a very valuable question because, of course, as urban strategists, we talk about geography. And the first thing I have, like, I'm a hyper-energetic person. I have a full-time job at an architecture office for 10 years already. At the same time, I have my weekend atelier for also another 5 years. And I do a lot of volunteer works, and I create many different things in the spare time. So do I have to be a hyper-energetic person to move around and to be a nomad? So that's the question I have when I first seen this theme. I found it very interesting. Oh, shit. Wait. Okay. So I have a lot of romantic ideas about nomads. Probably everyone does. Like, it comes from a hunter culture. At the same time, it's Mongolia, it's lawns and this grass and this beautiful lifestyle everyone wants to have. But then I think it's very interesting, Veronica was saying the definition about the nomad is like you do not stay a place for long. I'm like, okay, if I'm a migrant, do I still can claim myself as nomad? And that brings to my next theme, like how I remember this word as a non-English speaker, which is nomad. I think it's kind of like reasonable. You go to a place and you cannot be mad at anything because you are so new and you have to stay always calm and it's like everything new. Okay, I'm trying to figure out my way. Maybe this is the social contract for this country, which I do not know. But at the same time, I feel a little bit sadness because basically I come from China. I lived there for 17 years. And this year is also very symbolic because I live in Rotterdam also for 17 years. So I'm exactly somewhere in between. I don't know if I can claim myself nomad, but for sure migrant. Where is this sadness comes from is this little air, between those two letters. Like, I could be anywhere. I am free to choose everywhere I want to go. But at the same time, maybe I'm nowhere. And I think that's the struggle I personally experience. And I think that I want to bring to the next scale, like how long is the long enough to be called from tourist? Like I don't have my map, I lost my way, to certain levels to think, oh, I need to meet people, I need to know local friends, I need to bond with someone. And then to feel like, oh, I'm so light-weighted here because I don't feel belonging to this community. And then you become a migrant like now, okay, I'm gonna stuck in Rotterdam forever, right? Not bad, I love the city. When you ask the question which city you will be, actually I choose Rotterdam. For reasons because Rotterdam is a place, have certain histories hidden, but it's probably growing fresh new. I think that's somehow my background as well. So fun is beautiful. So I'm just bringing this discussion for everyone to think about it. How long is long? What is the time scale actually when we talk about nomad? Yes. And another thing, I think from the illustration we already see, the traditional definition for the pastoralist is move with the nature is very beautiful. They go with where the resources are sufficient to support their survival. And nowadays when we talk about, yes, digital nomads is with moving with the laptops, just like the illustration you have is so beautiful. But I see two layers when we talk about move with a laptop. First of all, it's like, so laptop is kind of something you create another parallel universe for yourself to be independent from where you actually being. So I think that's somehow, as a nomad, usually you have this very comfort bubble for yourself, even when you move to another place. And another layer is, I think, as most of you are creatives and freelancers probably, you realize everyone has been attached to a certain identity. And this is somehow in this market how it works, basically. You have to be called UX designers, you have to be called graphic designers, people put text on you, oh, you're good at this and you're good at that, and then you create kind of like your unique position. And in this case, I would say, just think another scale like professionally, how flexible do we want to be? Maybe another day you want to try different method, you want to try different expressions. And that's something what I choose. I say, I actually want to move with the expressions. And what does it mean? It's like, I don't want to constrain for certain formats. I think who I am as identity is more important than what I play with, what I learned, what I'm skillful. I think that's very unique personality instead of identity in that sense. So some of the examples of what I'm keeping myself really busy with. Well, I'm urban strategist. Again, nobody really understands what it means, but I personally design games, like board games, and to talk about urban issues. And we do workshops to actually play with the hands, with whatever materials we can find in the garbage, and to make a beautiful map and think along for the urban planning. We also do exhibitions where we talk about actually to have multiple artists for the commercial brands as well. And I do writings myself to express my thinking about the city. And as I said, I'm hyper-energetic people, so there are a lot of people actually ask me how you manage your energy, how you manage your time. So I start to do Notion templates for that. Yeah, so that's become very popular because everyone apparently wants to do that, and then I just add one more thing into my to-do list. Then I do fictions a bit, like just to let the thoughts flow around, and of course the installation where I will bring you further. So for the nomad discussion, actually, I didn't realize I was trying so many formats and so many topics and to figure out what really touches my heart. And this was the first one I started 11 years ago. Then I realized I somehow continues for this topic for a really, really long time. Just imagine it's like a London bus, but 2 times larger, 3 times larger, I have no idea. But basically the idea is you have one self-sustained factory for the food, and everyone who wants to take a ride, instead of paying for the tickets, you exchange with your labor. So you come in and either you're trying to water in the vegetables or pick up the vegetables or feed up the cows, feed up the chicken, and then you prepare for the food, and then you cook, and then you can move to help for the package. And when you drop off from the bus, you could probably help to deliver this package of the food for someone who ordered it. So it also contains like takeaway functions in there. And when you have this bus, we call it actually a nomadic farm. It goes to the city. And that's how I see very symbolically, like nomad, how you exchange the energy and the system with the city. So you can see the city becomes, we're not going to the farm, we're not going to the suburb, but we invite them in. And some of the places, you have the exchange moments. Like, for instance, maybe you collect the water, the rainwater from the building, and you could also use it and drop it into the bus to watering the plants. At the same time, you can lift it up to feeding the cows. Well, of course, I'm even imagining the cows into a bus. And sometimes you just delivering is with others and to share the energies, etc. So I think this is kind of my starting point to think of the relationship between nomad and a city. You are yourself somehow, but at the same time you are exchanging, not much, but you are contributing and exchange the energies. That brings my second interesting project with friends, talking about well, this is probably you could recognize, it's like garlic. So I do this very interesting drawing because we were really stuck like, okay, this is a project for the Utrecht Ram exhibition. So we have this offer and we say, okay, what is Ram area? That's how urbanists usually start the thinking. So we look at the Ram area and to the farm area. So this is like in between the 2 plots. And what we figure out is actually it's a very diverse group. Without knowing, and we notice the integration socially is not so well established there. But what it means also like plenty of different food. I'm personally found food is the universal language across all the cultures, regardless what you are. The first thing you are not going to say to no for trying a new food. Probably you will try to say no to knowing a new friend, but food never. So I think it becomes a very interesting story. So we have this garlic. By default, it's also a beautiful object to associate with nomad because it could be like independent little pieces of the garlic, which can travel around, and we can collect the ingredients from everyone's kitchen because every ingredient from the kitchen carries somehow the memory of the home, and that's part of your culture. And some of the unused spaces, you collect them together, and then it becomes a mobile installation, becomes the very end of the exhibition. And it's also a process that when you go through it, you could interact with it. It becomes a very vibe, and to activate the space, yeah, that's what urbanists always think about, how to activate unused space, make it more fun. And eventually, when it collects together, it turns from an empty, basically, garlic become a very scentfully object. So these thoughts, food, migration, integration, become something really touches me. So I continue to explore for this. We do a placemaking program next to the Chinatown in Rotterdam. I think it's also very symbolic. We joined a project called Next Chinatown. So the question starts is actually Chinese community is one of the very first migration community moved to Rotterdam on the Katterendecht, where the Phoenix Museum, everyone probably know the island, locates. But for many, many years, it's been rejected to acknowledge there was a community there. What happened is there was one Chinese guy married a Dutch woman. And then later on, they even withdraw the Dutch citizenship from this woman because the whole Chinese community was kind of like, it's not a nice neighborhood, they bring whatever things to the city. So I think now, because of course everyone knows it becomes also a very large community, so everyone talks about it, then we are thinking to really evaluate this old history and to let people think about it, what is happening, and we are talking about the next Chinatown, because I think food is very strong medium to break the different cultures, but at the same time, it creates a stereotype. Everyone loves Chinese food, but everyone, when you talk about China, they were, oh, I love Chinese food. That's the first thing they thought. And they were like, oh, you're Chinese, are you owning a restaurant here? That's like, sorry for stereotype myself, but this is the question I got a lot as well. So I found this very interesting. And when we start this, it's also a very strange time where those geopolitical situation happens. We're like, you know, all the Chinese restaurant, you have the round table. Instead, the more Western way is like square-ish, and you are more cautiously selecting who is in front of you and next to you. And those are like 4 people is the maximum capacity you can have the conversation, right? So we're like, you know, from ancient times, like circular table is for the equal conversations. How about we have our workshop talk about it? And we're not only talk about the Chinese community, but we bring it to further. It's migration, it's Rotterdam. We're talking about all the different communities coming here. So we made 3 tables. Of course, we borrowed the table from the Chinese restaurant. So it helps. And we have our 3 tables bring the different aspect, talking about the relationship between food and migration. I'm gonna walk you through the details a bit. So the first one we call ingredients odyssey. So basically, when people travel around, they bring the local foods and the ingredients with them. So like potatoes is never growing like suddenly from Netherlands, for instance, or Germany. It's from somewhere, but you don't know where it is and what was happened to bring it here. So if we look at this, there was a map called like spread of the potatoes. For what accidents, it's kind of like going everywhere and it becomes the major ingredients for the food. So what we did is we use a stamp And it was a little quiz to make you guess. Okay, guess where the potato comes from. Don't ask me, I don't remember the answers anymore. But then we used exactly like Cinnabon, for instance, so where Cinnabon comes from. And we used the stamp to ask people to map it out, the route, what should imagine, have been traveled around for these ingredients. There's a right and wrong answer, of course, so we'll give the hints in between, because apparently not everyone is aware of that. So this is the first table we want to say, okay, just be aware what you have every day in the supermarket is the result of the migration. And then it goes to the second table. Okay, you have all the materials, you have tomatoes, you have beef and potatoes, etc. But why the same ingredients goes to every country or culture with different food? So this is where we call it kitchen remix. It's the same like Chinese tomato and beef, and there's a Dutch version which tastes exactly different. So like, okay, so with the same thing, we're trying to integrate to something, but it's different. Where is the difference? So this is the discussion we want to bring. And you can see like this looks even similar, and you will see there's a lot of argument. Oh, wow, I didn't know you guys have that too. I didn't know tomato beef is a thing in Netherlands, honestly. So I learned something from the process. So this is also to use the food as a medium to raise up awareness, like we are even the dish as ourselves. We're a mixture of many things. And my favorite one is the third table. Because every dish make it unique is particularly the herbs. There are some very strong herbs. When you smell it, you know where it comes from. You know, oh, this is Thai food, this is Korean food, or this is Chinese food. This is so like unique. And what we have is we put a lot of ingredients, what we can buy in Netherlands, of course, on the table, and we say, feel free to take it. But do leave a beautiful story about your memory about any herbs from your hometown and how it associates with where you are. I think that's very crucial because sometimes you are not missing, like if you say, okay, I miss my grandma's recipe, what does it mean? And you are talking about some herbs probably cannot be purchased here. You have to brought from your home country. And that makes the whole meal very unique. I think that's also kind of my thought about immigrants. Like, you are a mixture of many things, like a food, but the herbs, like little things, you are so stubborn to stay as it is, as it was. It's so crucial to make you unique in some way. Yeah, I think that's actually my last sharing for the projects and my journey about thinking about the nomad, thinking about the migration. So I don't know if you have different answers, please share. My answer to my own question is, yeah, maybe I don't have to move. I think it's like, for instance, I stay in Rotterdam for 17 years. I can never claim myself as nomad. But I do think it's the observation of the world, to be open to it, but at the same time to be very solid who you are. I think that's also very interesting claim. Yeah, I hope I'm not talking too fast. Here you go. Yeah, sure.
Now it's time for our Q&A. So if you have any questions for Jammy, please raise your hand.
I'm dumping a lot of things, isn't it?
Hi, my name is Ren. I think it might be a tough question to answer, but I'm curious. Like, this is kind of like the fully formed culmination, here's the things I'm doing. But when you were moving here and trying to follow your interests or trying to be creative, what did that look like in like smaller steps or smaller phases? Because I think it's, right, like sitting here, I'm really admiring what you've done, but it also feels really big, and I'm curious, like where you started, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it also depends on the expectations I set for those big questions. Actually, I'm trying to find like really lightweight, easy, simple way to work with. So it also becomes you don't spend too much energy to develop it to a perfect. But just try it out and go with it and see how the, let's say, reality reflects on that. So I think that's kind of my attitude towards many things. Like you just rather start it. Once you have the spark, you have the inspiration, do it. And maybe I have many projects like that halfway, for sure. This is just like some of the better ones, let's say. They're not perfect. But I think, yeah, that's probably for me the only way to try out, because I think it's also a process to understand what I really like to do. Like those 3 projects, I think even for this lecture, then I start to see the connection clues. Before that, I don't see it. I see them very independent projects, actually. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Pedro, and I'm a social psychologist, so I really love how you figure out this. I'm also curious if you, well, in my observation, certain countries, they also go for community-oriented dishes, and more to the northern hemisphere is more like just quick. So I wonder if you consider bringing this idea of how people who move to a different country, who miss the community building, like for instance, as a Latin American guy, I enjoy the process of cooking with the person who is inviting me to dinner, not only arriving and have everything set. So have you ever considered also bringing that?
Yeah, that's a very good point, because we were thinking for those tables, we were thinking to have actual like cooking sessions together, you know, instead of just like exhibitions and a little bit interaction. But it was just like, for instance, it's very physical constraints, of course. And I think also like it's the process, cooking together is a process. Like the garlic project, even though we're not cooking together, but the discussions and conversation is a lighter, easier way to engage, to start the conversation. I talk with you, then I can invite you for the dinner or cooking together. I think that's also like different steps to create awareness, and this is like really baby steps from beginning. That's how I think. But definitely something I think cooking session would be very nice to have.
Good morning.
Morning.
I'm Truth, Lisbon City host with my partner. Thank you for that. How and why are toilets political?
Okay, people do read, and that's good to hear. Thank you. So, well, I traveled a lot of places this year. I was in Mexico for 2 or 3 weeks, and then I traveled to Japan. So the toilet is political comes from Japan, because they are genuinely like so clean. It's crazy, and I want to raise up like also every supermarket has free toilets. Even here, you go to Bangkok, you have to pay for toilet, right? And also the amount of the public toilets is it's a lot, and they are very well maintained. So that's more from urbanista perspective. We talk about the partnership between private and public. What's the boundary? I think in Netherlands there is a lady get sued because she cannot find the toilet publicly in Amsterdam after all the restaurants close. So she has to pee next to the canal, and all know those signs like saying you will get fined for that. Maybe everyone knows the story. So then she starts to fight for it, saying, okay, I have to pay for the fine, but come on, city, you are, first of all, did not provide enough toilets for women. For men, it's simple and it's symbolic in Netherlands how the design is, but for women, no. So that raised up a lot of discussions, and I'm kind of like comparing with the Japan version, like how they could do it, why Netherlands cannot do it. And then, of course, like all the restaurants in Japan, they provide free toilets and super clean, and those very hygiene and smart system for the toilet in Japan. So why they could reach to that level which Netherlands cannot reach? So that's kind of the conversation I'm trying to raise. And it becomes political because this is a very small but essential facility we expect from the city. But it creates such a bizarre place. I'm happy you read the title, though.
It's a really good point.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Tiffany. I'm also I'm from Taiwan. And I feel like for me, a lot of moving around also, I think, come back to what you talked about, finding community, and that's a lot of times the biggest challenge for people. But what is it for you? What was your biggest challenge, and how did you build up your community here when you moved here? Did you move with your family or you moved?
No, I just moved here alone. Yeah.
Same. So that's.
Yeah, it's challenging. Yeah.
So I'd like to hear your experience.
I think, everyone is looking for community, so you're not alone. Everyone is trying to find each other. That's really positive thing. And I think it somehow happened coincidence, like when you first arrive a place, like me arriving in Rotterdam, I like to try different dishes. And at a certain moment, you're like, I just miss Chinese food. Then you go to the restaurant. And from the restaurant, from the school, from different gatherings, and friends start to invite each other for food. Food is a big culture in China as well. And then you get to know the community. And now, I think back in time when I was here like 17 years ago, it was a rather small Chinese community in Rotterdam. So now when I walk on the street, people feel like, oh, you basically know everyone, but no, I'm not. But now it becomes also like there are more people, so more approachable in a way, but then they become small groups within the community as well. So it's different. Like if you like to play poker, probably the interest the group is more important than the community. Yeah, so I'm just saying, like when you talk about community, there's a lot of definitions rather than the culture and nationalities, I think.
Yeah, I go to a church here, and I think that's my home. I think that's a good way to find community. With people without a religion, without any belief, like what is it that bonds you? Because a lot of times when you come here, everyone has such busy schedules. You see them once, you never see them again.
Oh yeah, you have to plan 1 month ago.
You have to find people that have time for you, and that's everything. Yeah. But,
True.
yeah. Anyways.
We have time for one more question, because you already asked one, I'm gonna give you one.
Or response to what she was saying.
Okay. We can keep the conversation.
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you for the talk. That was very. I'm looking for the word. Thought-provoking. But what I would like to ask is, you mentioned how you think putting your identity into everything you do is really important, and I agree with that. But how do you navigate that? Let's say you have mentioned that you work for a company, right?
Yeah.
So how, because there's always this clash, you want to put your
Yes.
identity into everything you do, but sometimes you have to do something that might not, fully align with, I don't want to say your values, because doesn't fully align with what you want to do. So how do you navigate that, and how do you make sure that you still stay true to yourself and your identity while, you do the job, you get the job done, or like you do what you have to do? How is it that you navigate that?
Well, I think it is hard, and I think I'm very much experienced in that. That's why I have the weekend atelier and hobbies and small projects aside to compensate the mental damage from the work. Not that severe, to be honest. But I mean, I stayed for this company for more than 10 years, so I think there are some true values and things I really acknowledge and really agreed upon. So that's the first thing. Otherwise, I would not be there already. So that's not. But also, I like to say it's more like daily base. How do you find the moment to really stick what you really want to do? But I think, honestly, even as a freelancer, you don't always get the chance. I was talking like freelancer never free, because you probably, for other reasons, you have different clients. Your boss is a client, sort of, in the office. When you become a freelancer, your client is a client. You still have that someone pays for, your bill and for your groceries. And this is how the market works. But I think sometimes, even for me, I think having a full-time job, sometimes it's a release. Like I don't have to worry about financial stabilities that much. So it gives me room to explore different things, different formats, and to really find the one I want to go just myself. I think it's also like a transition process everyone needs to explore.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Let's give a round of applause.